Basically going to be diving into the state of the UK esports scene as of right now, who's leading the charge and where the future of UK esports is going to end up taking us. Our moderator for this panel is none other than the one and only Dom Sacco from Esports News UK. For our speakers, we have Karen from the Story Mob, Michael from YouGov, another Michael, this time it's Michael O'Dell from Infinite Reality, and Nick from .x Talent. Please put your hands together for them.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here. Very excited to be here, to be talking about UK esports. We've got some great teams here, we've got some great talent, and we've got a great panel as well. So I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. First of all, my name is Dominic Sacco. I'm the editor of Esports News UK, and I work as a consultant helping brands, businesses understand and succeed in esports. So I'll let you go along. Nick, you first.
My name's Nick Williams. I'm the managing director of .x Talent, and I'm also a barrister at Morgan Sports Law.
My name is Michael O'Dell. I'm Chief Gaming Officer at Infinite Reality. I've been in esports for 23 years, founded Team Dignitas, sold that, and now I run Rogue and London Royal Ravens.
Hi, I'm David Jackson. I'm the managing director of Newell. I'm sorry, I'm not Michael from YouGov. So Newell is a grassroots organizer, which you might know primarily for focusing on university sports, communities, and tournament organization. But we've also started doing some non-uni stuff as well recently.
Hi, and I'm Karen, and I'm the comms director EMEA at the Story Mob, and we're a full-service communications agency for brands that are rooted in gaming culture.
And the Story Mob have partnered up. They've sponsored an upcoming report, which I'm really excited about. I've been working hard on this the past few months. It's going to be looking at the current state of UK esports, some of the challenges and opportunities. This is due to be released in October. I understand there's going to be more you can get from UKIE there. Karen, would you like to start us off by telling us a little bit more about that report and why Story Mob got involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So while we're headquartered in the US, we opened our office in the UK about 2 years ago, mid-pandemic. And I think the last couple of years, a lot has changed, not just within the industry, but in the wider world. And we felt that this was a really good time to draw a line in the sand and take a step back and have a look at what we've achieved so far as an industry, reflect on our achievements, but then also have a look at some of the key players, and some of them sit next to me here on the stage today, but also the future opportunities and where we can capitalize on kind of this industry going forward.
And so just to kick off, if we look at UK esports and the region specifically, what are the strengths here? Because for me, there are a few things that jump out, like talent and so on. Nick, maybe you could start us off there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in terms of talent, something the UK has pretty much always had is an abundance of top-tier broadcast talent. We've got UK exports on all the biggest stages worldwide in some pretty big titles, pretty big leagues. And some really exciting talent coming up as well. So
we've got one here today, haven't we? Jasmine Veracity, who's hosting ESI London, is doing some top broadcasts as well. So
I expect we'll carry on that line. I mean, I think something the industry has in the UK is some really good industry talent and exciting new businesses. But then I also think that we fall behind a lot of other regions in quite a few areas. I mean, players, for example, the number of UK players playing in top-tier leagues is pretty minimal. I think content creators, we've got big ones, but they're only big for the UK. When you compare the sort of size and brand power of US content creators to what we have in the UK, it kind of dwarfs what we have over here. And I think probably the last thing we really need more of is more kind of identifiably UK-focused teams. There's a few, but there's not really sort of many which can kind of match the brand power of orgs like FaZe Clan or G2. But that said, I think it's a pretty exciting space where there's going to be lots of growth. So probably lots to look forward to and lots of areas in which we're going to be stronger over the next 10 years.
Why do you think that is, Odie, as someone who's worked on a lot of teams, that we have a bit of a lack of UK talent? I know you work with London Royal Ravens, and we do have some good British players there, but across the board, games like Dota, I'm thinking of League of Legends, we don't really have talent like Korea or even North America or other countries in Europe have, like Denmark and so on.
I think it's really a big problem with the infrastructure in the UK. I would say it's probably better now than it ever has been, though. You've got people like Riot Games who are actually putting in leagues and competitions where players can actually come through. But in this country, we've always lacked the longevity of players and actually players being able to be professional and carry on their career for quite a while. And then what happens after professional? That's something that I'm really looking right now at trying to fix. But that's what's lacking, in my opinion.
And we've had this conversation before, haven't we? What do people do after they go pro? And do you think the UK's been a bit stuck in limbo?
I think, yeah. Especially with COVID. COVID kind of put us back quite a long way. I think now, though, it's getting to a head where things are starting to grow. I went to Insomnia last week. That's recovering. You've got places like Epic Land. You've got all the university stuff that's going on. So these players are out there. We do have the talent. Somebody's got to find them and pay them some money. And then we've got players that can go into the LEC, LCS, Call of Duty League. They're there. We just need to help them.
100%. And you mentioned the university level. I think one of the strengths for me in UK esports is the education level. We have degree courses, multiple courses. We have a fantastic collegiate scene. We've got David here from the Null. Maybe you could tell us a bit about that space and the strengths we have there.
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting sort of thing that we do. That it's quite funny when we talk to people from different countries about this, because we're working, for example, on University Esports Masters across Europe, where we're dealing directly with various different countries. And likewise, whenever we've talked to our sort of collegiate colleagues in the States, they've always said, we wish we could have something similar to what you guys do, or something of the scale of what you guys do. I think in addition to the two sort of, I guess you could say, major players in the form of Newell and NSE, you've also got the kind of lots of, I guess, smaller organizations that students are starting or other people are starting. There's just a lot of activity around the space. In addition to that, you've got students increasingly making inroads with the universities themselves. I think Warwick are a fantastic example of that, where they've actually got university buy-in in the form of their esports centre, which has come largely down to people like Jack Fenton, people like the people in his team, to really push that and continually push that. If you speak to the Warwick guys, and you really should, they've got a really strong sense of what they want, and that's something that we're trying to push other students to say as well.
They're here as well. They're at the back there. It's
a really fantastic example for people to follow in terms of really knowing what you're trying to get and pushing for it. So I think the combination of those things has really helped. Obviously, we recently announced our partnership with Confetti just a couple of days ago, which is another interesting example of a university saying, this isn't just we have a specific set of sort of expertise and experience, in this case sort of esports production, live events, event production. How can we apply that to esports specifically? So they come from music and live events. So there's a lot of potential there, there's a lot of activity, and I think it's something, there's still a lot for us to do there.
Yeah, 100%. And Karen as well, for me, as someone who follows UK esports very closely, one type of business, I've seen a lot of these emerge in recent years, is agencies, talent agencies, PR marketing agencies. Obviously, you're with an agency. Tell us a bit about the strengths we have there, because I think we have some good talent working behind the scenes, not just on the stage with the esports players.
Thank you for the setup. What a wonderful bio. Yeah, I think you're right, and I was just going to refer and say, I've learned a ton from doing this report, and also just talking to, Odie and David before the panel on some of the strengths within kind of talent and in the collegiate network. I actually think we suffer a little bit from unfair criticism as a market, because I think we get compared to the US quite a lot. And they are a little bit further ahead than we are. There's no bones about it. And then, to your point, when you look at other areas within esports, agencies like ourselves, but also some of the brands we've got here, like Fnatic, Excel, Guild, we absolutely deserve our rightful place on that esports world stage. But I think to Odie's point, progress is being made. It's just going to take a bit more time to get us where we're, more recognised.
You mentioned Fnatic and a few others there. We're going to cover who are the key players in UK esports. Obviously, Odie, you're going to be biased because you're with the Ravens, Rogue with Infinite Reality, but yeah, who would you say some of the key players are at the team level and beyond that as well, I guess?
Well, as mentioned, Fnatic, Guild. The good thing is, like, the teams are actually working together at the moment. So the UKIE TC has been formed to work together as teams to actually grow esports in this country, not commercially, but to make noise to government, semi-government, like, get some bloody investment into the UK scene. That's what it needs. So we've started the UK ETC 2 years ago, slowly moving along. The teams are always going to be there. The teams are going to be the high level. For me, the important stuff at the moment is the university stuff, the educational stuff as well. Talent agents as well. Talent agencies like Infinite Reality, we have our own talent agency as well. But actually promoting the fact that we got such talent, especially in the broadcasters, the commentators. We need to transfer that to the players and get those pro players in the big leagues. That's my goal.
Something I've seen as well, clusters forming around the UK. We've got London, Shoreditch, you've got XL Esports, Fnatic, I think Guild are there now. Endpoint have a little tie-up with one of their sponsors, CEX. We've got the British Esports Federation opening in Sunderland, their performance centre. Salford, host Salford. We're seeing these clusters form. And a lot of venues trying to open up as well and tackling esports. Do you think that's going to be key in the future?
Totally. It's a spectator sport. We need people watching it. We need venues. Again, going to Insomnia and watching tournaments there again after the last couple of years. It's nice to see some stuff in the UK happening rather than in America or Germany or Korea. We haven't had a big esports event here for a long time. I think, was it 2015? Last time Riot were here. If Riot are here, bring it here again. We need stuff here. This country is great for stuff like that. And then if we bring something to London, the mayor's office, get involved, help. That's what we need.
We felt that massively at the grassroots level as well. Like, it's for us as much as any. When we started doing on-campus events, supporting societies to do that a few years ago, pre-COVID, in effect doubled the number of people who participated in NUL activities. And a lot of the people that we saw getting involved in those were people who traditionally weren't playing in the highly competitive tournaments, a much wider sort of demographic split, which sadly was difficult to retain once COVID happened. So I think something with the live aspect of it, the spectator aspect, I think also in terms of just organising things for the community to do is going to be absolutely critical. Like, obviously COVID is still here, but as we start to get more back to some semblance of normality, at the grassroots level, that's going to be as important.
And obviously this year we had the Commonwealth Esports Championships as well, which I think was massive for the UK, and a really important part of kind of breaking that more mainstream awareness, which for me is a challenge and an opportunity for the future more than anything else. But I think it was great for us to be able to do that over here in the UK.
Yeah, 100%. And also we had the Rocket League major, spring major, at the Copper Box, which was fantastic. Some of the crowds, you know, in this report, I spoke to you, Odie, and you said the UK has some of the best crowds out there. You work in Call of Duty. And if there are people in the audience, if you haven't gone to one of those events, I recommend you do, because we do have a fantastic atmosphere. Talking about challenges as well, if we move on to that, Odie, you mentioned government. There are particular areas. I think we've had some challenges around visas in the past, securing visas for talent coming to the UK and going out of the UK. Maybe you could tell us a bit about that, and also the SIC codes that we don't have at the moment.
Yeah, so visas have been a problem for years. That's something the UK ETC is pushing as we're talking to DCMS to see if we can get help on that, in that regard, getting players into the UK for events. To me, the simplest thing government can do is create esports SIC codes, SIC codes. It's the defining code for a company. It means the government can look at, okay, how much revenue does esport actually generate? Right now, I think between all the esports teams, we've probably got about 8 or 9 different codes. So we don't, it just seems ridiculous to me.
And that's something that's been really hard to track. I think we've had a lack of data. Is that fair to say in the UK? What are the revenues here? UKIE have done some good reports over the years. We've got another one coming. But we need more of that. Is there anything else the panel would like to add about challenges here? And
I mean, from my perspective, I do think it's that mainstream awareness, non-endemic brands, non-endemic media, because I think when we're talking about revenues, being able to bring some of those brands into our space will benefit us. And you look at, brands like Fnatic, for example, that are partnering with ASOS. And I hate to bang the drum for Fnatic, but a couple of weeks ago, they were actually featured in the Mail Online, which shows that they are breaking through. And I think it's only by being able to showcase the value of the industry and be able to continue to tell those stories and break through like that, that we will actually be able to hopefully steal some of those revenues for our industry.
that has been a challenge. I think the public's perception of esports. We've been basement-dwelling gamers for years now. I think that is starting to change, especially the education level. Teachers and parents are becoming more aware, and mainstream media as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there is still scepticism and hesitancy. But related to the Commonwealth Esports Championships, we actually, as a team, did some media outreach because we thought it was a really good opportunity to shine a spotlight on the industry. And, you know, the likes of the Metro and the Sun actually did engage with us. And you know, we wanted to come down to events like this. They want to learn more. So I agree with you. I think there's still an element of people being slightly critical. But there's a shift and there's a movement and there's definitely a desire to learn more.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to throw you on the spot, Nick, because you have the legal knowledge and so on. Are there any challenges you've seen in esports or anything you'd like to see change in the future?
Yeah, a bunch. I mean, from a talent perspective, I think particularly players, something I'd really like to see is franchise league owners trying to either introduce the standard form contract as part of their rules or better regulating what terms can and cannot go into contracts. It's something which happens all the time in professional sport. I know the structure is different. There's a unique challenge that goes with, you know, they're not being national leagues, them being transnational entities, transnational enterprises. But I think it's perfectly possible to do if they had the desire to do it. I think the problem is at the moment they don't. There's nothing particularly bad that happens to them if bad stuff happens or a player signs something that they probably shouldn't do. I think it would solve a lot of the problems that exist around players not being able to take proper advice or afford to take proper advice, teams also not being able to take proper advice around how they contract. And it would be a relatively small outgoing for a franchise league operator to do that kind of thing. And it would relieve a huge amount of individual burden that currently falls on the shoulders of players and smaller teams.
Yeah, 100%. If we look to the future then and the opportunities, I'm still excited about UK esports. I think we have good talent here, good things to be optimistic about. Where would you say some of the opportunities lie for UK?
I mean, I think the buzzwords Web3 and Metaverse. I mean, that's what everyone's talking about. Whether we're still skeptical about some areas of it, you know, we're already seeing brands create immersive experiences. You've got to think Roblox, Fortnite, and I think that's going to continue. I don't know if I want to mention, you know, the other word, the dirty word NFTs right now, but let's stick with Web3 and Metaverse.
That word, yeah, the dreaded N word, NFTs. I mean, I get press releases all the time about Metaverse and NFTs, and I have to think, how relevant is this to esports? But then I do see the work of some esports organisations doing interesting things. I think Fnatic's membership, London United have explored in that space. Odie, your parent company, Infinite Reality, have had a lot of interesting, you know, presentations they've shown you, which I'm not privy to, but tell us a bit about, you know, your views on this, maybe changing esports.
Well, we are a metaverse company. We're at the forefront of the metaverse as it is right now. Like everybody else, I'm skeptical to start with, but when I went out to Los Angeles last month, saw the studio, saw what they're capable of, and see what their vision is for the future. I'm really, really excited about what's coming, and it's going to really, in my opinion, improve esports globally, not just in this country. A really simple example of it is we play a lot of Call of Duty games in America. A lot of our fans can't get to America. Okay, they can watch it on YouTube, Twitch, whatever. Say we created a virtual stadium where our fans can come and sit in their seat in the virtual stadium, all 20 million of them, maybe 50 million. it's just infinite reality. It's quite clever.
This wasn't on my list, but you've just reminded me of an event Riot Games did. I think it was last year for League of Legends. They had their virtual music groups, and one of those is a rock group called Pentakill. And they did an event which was a virtual event. It was like, I think it was a live concert using motion capture. So it was virtual. And then I was thinking, well, if everyone had virtual reality headsets and we're moving around that, we start to look at a space where, I don't know, there's going to be more interactivity in the future, potentially.
Well, I don't want a headset, I want a holodeck. Once we get a holodeck, it will be cool. Definitely don't want a headset.
Does anyone else have any other views on NFTs, metaverse? Nick, I know you were a little bit more skeptical.
Metaverse I can get behind. Dom, I think you know my feelings on NFTs, which are broadly that someone's yet to tell me a use for an NFT within the esports context that really adds anything or isn't just something you could do without an NFT with an NFT tacked on. I mean, it's a way of commercializing, or it's another way of selling something. But to me, it rarely adds anything to the thing that's actually being sold. If you're selling a piece of digital artwork, putting it on a blockchain doesn't help me enjoy that piece of digital artwork more. I mean, if you're selling membership to a fan club, which is effectively what a lot of these org tokens are, you don't need to put that in an NFT in order to do that thing. You know, you've had fan clubs and similar operating for years and years in other contexts without that technology. I get that it's inevitable. It's either going to be everywhere in 5 years or nowhere, probably the former, because that seems to be the direction of travel. But I've always kind of personally struggled to see the value in it. I think it's just another way of extracting money from people.
But, you know, when you look at revenues, you know, teams aren't making an awful lot of revenues. Well, in terms of profit, it's been a challenge for UK teams and other teams. It could be an alternative revenue stream for teams in the future, but what that looks like is the million-dollar question.
Look, it absolutely could be, but it doesn't need to be. There are orgs, I mean, X7, UK org, who's trying to do something around, I mean, their whole business model, at least their stated business model, is around being a funnel for East Asian players who want to play in ERLs and then eventually the LEC, and getting those players in, introducing mechanisms around buyout clause to monetize those transfers. And they've started to do it successfully. They did it with Harrow at the start of Summer Split for LEC. I mean, that's a particular thing which a particular org in a particular position can do. But it shows that there are kind of creative ways about thinking of new ways to create revenue that isn't just, you know, buy my picture of a monkey.
Yeah, understood. Understood. I think, Odie, you convinced me a little bit with NFTs around digital collectibles. You know, we have skins in League of Legends, that kind of thing. That could be a route forward.
But people like collecting stuff. It's like you said, like the Rocket League major. So people got a ticket for the copper box. So if that ticket was an NFT and it was a virtual collectible, not just a ticket, Psyonix could add anything to that ticket for years to come. And it's endless for a Rocket League fan. And what that means in terms of revenue, God knows, it's endless.
Yeah. I'm still on the fence. I don't know if we have time for questions. One question. We've got time for one question. I saw your hand go up first. So,
do I need to hold down the button?
That's it, yep.
Cool. So, mostly to David, within grassroots esports, do you believe that people should begin to move towards sponsoring colleges as well as universities?
That's a good question. So should we get sponsors at the college level as well as universities? You know, should we get sponsors to really target that grassroots level more?
Just to clarify, is that sponsoring a course, sponsoring a team?
Sponsoring a team.
That's an interesting question. I think the challenge and this is a challenge that we've had at obviously one of the reasons when we originally started at the university level was because the moment you dip below the age of 18, you start having more questions about the sort of the ethics of how you're marketing to people. I mean, we've just had a decent length conversation about NFTs, which I probably wouldn't want to go to a 16-year-old about, to be honest. I think there'd be ethical questions. And one thing I really like about the way that British esports approaches things is I think that it puts safeguarding and safety at the centre of it, which I've seen other organisers not do at the secondary space. So I would say I wouldn't ever want to rule that sort of thing out, because I think it's good to have more money coming into the space. It's good to have investment in facilities for students, especially because I think one of the challenges at secondary school level now is where you look at where the teams are coming from, and I think Don would know more about this than I do. A lot of the time you're talking about sort of private, sort of independent schools and sort of kind of well-funded colleges where maybe you don't see as much of that, and I think they'd want to expand outreach to places that don't have that. One way of achieving that is through sponsorship. But I think I'd have the caveat there of, again, safeguarding and safety needs to be at the centre of that. I wouldn't want it to become some sort of commercial free-for-all.
When you look at Sunday League football teams, teenagers playing football, they usually have a sponsor. I don't think there's, that's a good reason why we need to be aware. But I think it's a great way. I just think esports teams at the college level need to be realistic with the sponsors as to what they're getting, because they won't be getting, obviously, millions of viewers. But I think there is an appetite for that, 100%. I think we're out of time now, so what I'll end with is please look out for this report we've worked hard on UK Esports. It comes out next month, as I understand it, and that's from UKIE, the Story Mob, and YouGov. And I had the honour of helping to write that, so please look out for that. And a big round of applause for our panellists, please. Thanks very much. Okay, I think it's over to Jasmine now. Thank you.